3 times in the Qur'an, Allah has prohibited what today is recognized as inflation. The constantly increasing prices in consequence of the falling value of money. That's inflation today. And through this process of inflation, people are ripped off of their wealth. 3 times in the Qur'an, Allah has commanded. He says, وَأَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. One way, do not deprive people, do not diminish the value of people's property and wealth and so on. أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. One way in which you can diminish the value of people's property and the value of the thing, their labor and so on, is through the corruption of money. When we use that money which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had ordained, and which is most certainly in the Sunnah, we use money which had intrinsic value, and money then successfully functioned, not only as a medium of exchange for buying and selling, not only as a measure of value, what price you should pay for this and for that, but most importantly as a store of value. So that if you went to sleep with some money in your pocket, and with that money you could buy a plate of biryani, and you slept for 300 years, when you woke up after that sleep, you could still take that money and go and buy the plate of biryani. Because the money has functioned successfully as a store of value in Surah Al-Kahf of the Qur'an. Good. But if after 300 years you can no longer buy even a grain of rice with that money, then you've been ripped off with the money. This is what the Qur'an is talking about when it says, وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. You work for a whole month and you get a salary. And with that salary you could buy a camel. And then something happens to the money, and suddenly you can no longer buy a camel with your money, you can only buy a donkey. You're feeling like a donkey now. You've been ripped off. And then tomorrow you can no longer buy a donkey, you can only buy a chicken. Huh? This is what the Qur'an is talking about, inflation. I went in Iran in February of this year. I traveled to Iran to attend a conference on Jerusalem. And when the conference was over, I stayed back for a whole week. I had heard about an Ayatollah in Iran who had denounced the monetary system. And there are very few of the Ayatollahs in Iran who even know anything about money. I've met them. I've met the most learned among them. So when I heard about this man, I said, I want to meet him. So they arranged for me to go to the city of Qom to meet with Ayatollah Hairi Shirazi. When I reached to his home, there was a very simple, humble home with 3 stairs. And I had to climb up these stairs with my bad knee, so it was painful. When I reached to the top, there was a nice carpet. They all sit on the carpet, no chairs, no tables and so on. And some of his senior students were there waiting. They wanted to be present for this encounter, this exchange of views. So I sat down waiting for just a little while before the Ayatollah came. And he came and sat down next to me on the floor. And he held my hand in his hands and he would not release my hands. No. He kept on holding my hands. And he's 81 years of age and I'm 75. So I found this to be something very kind and gentle of the Ayatollah. He kept on holding my hands. Not accustomed to this. So he put me at ease. And then he said, okay, I'm going to show you through a process of a demonstration what I mean about this monetary system being bogus and fraudulent and haram. So he orders his students to bring a jar or jug of lemonade and another jug of pure water and a few glasses of empty glasses. Then he poured some of the lemonade for me, a little bit in a glass so I could taste very nice, tasty lemonade. Then guess what he did? He took the first glass and he poured 3/4 of lemonades and he added 1/4 of water. Then he took this glass and he poured it into another glass, 3/4, and added 1/4 of water. So he's diluting and diluting and diluting the lemonade. When he reached the little glass, he said, now taste. I could hardly taste any lemonade. He said, that's what they've done with money. The Ayatollah, in a simple demonstration of the dilution of lemonade, was able to teach the subject more brilliantly than I had with my lectures for 20 years. This is the wisdom. This was the wisdom of Ayatollah Akhir Shirazi. And 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago, I got the news that he died. Shirazi. I felt very, very sad to learn of the death of this wonderful, humble gentleman who was such an eminent, learned Ayatollah, and who will teach you a lesson the way prophets would teach. Yeah? MashaAllah. This is what paper money has done. And it is in manifest conflict with the Qur'an. وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. And after 1971, there was no pretense of any lemonade anymore. After 1971. Because up to 1971, there was still a little bit of lemonade, which was the provisions in the Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund that the US dollar was redeemable in gold at $35 an ounce to central banks. So you're still a little bit of lemonade. But when France challenged them, they backed out. And they reneged on their obligation under international law. And after that, no lemonade, no even pretense of a lemonade. And 1971 came and go, and no alim, no scholar of Islam, none stood up and said this is bogus and fraudulent. And haram, there's no lemonade now, it's only water. That's no institution of learning in the world. It made no difference whether you were Sunni or Shia. It made no difference whether you're Sufi or Salafi. It made no difference whether you're Deobandi or Brelvi. All of them were silent. None stood up and said. And that is 1971. Been quite a while since 1971. And then in 1974 came the PetroDollar, when now it's oil being used. And King Faisal was taken for a ride, yes. He didn't know the subject, yeah. But I wanted to make this comment to you, to try to take you back to the Qur'an. وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. That you're using money in such a way that people are being ripped off, or this is haram in the Qur'an.